Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers, the podcast where we celebrate the power of sensitivity and introversion in leadership, entrepreneurship and beyond. I'm Kate Carter, your host, a certified professional coach, HSP and introvert who's passionate about helping you embrace your unique gifts and lead with authenticity. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Sensitive Changemakers. As always, I hope this episode finds you well. Now, I am really excited about today, and I always love having guests on, and this one in particular because this is the first male I've ever had on the podcast, and I would love to have more males on because I think this is a conversation that needs to be had, and I think it's so difficult to get males who identify as being highly sensitive to talk about this. So this makes me incredibly excited. So I'm going to welcome on Marcas O'Dea. He transforms creative resistance into breakthroughs as the Story Sherpa, a creativity strategist who specialises in working with highly sensitive creative men. As a HSP himself, Marcus discovered early that his sensitivity functioned as an early warning system, essential for surviving the horrific abuse in his childhood home. Through 4 decades of spiritual practice and professional excellence, he learned to transform that survival mechanism into a sophisticated, intuitive notification system for detecting both cosmic opportunities and authentic paths forward. I hope you can hear already how awesome this conversation is going to be. He is the founder of Hearts of Thunder magazine, which is launching in 2026. He is dedicated to amplifying the voices of the highly sensitive and highly creative, and currently serves as community manager for Noble Manhattan Global Coaching, developing engagement strategies across 31 countries. Marcus brings a unique blend of Olympic-level athletic training, decades as a top-earning restaurant professional who thrived under pressure, and lifelong metaphysical practice to his coaching work. His approach centres on lighthouse energy, providing steady illumination without attachment to outcomes, creating safe harbours for HSPs to navigate their creative journeys with sovereignty and confidence. He teaches highly sensitive creatives that their depth of feeling, intense processing, and rich inner worlds aren't obstacles to success. They're the very gifts that make their stories unforgettable. And I said to Marcus before, I wanted to read that entire bio out because there was nothing in there that should have been left out. I think it was so important. So Marcus, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thanks for having me on. So excited to be here.
I am very, very excited to be here. And I would love to ask you, first of all, I'm going to dig straight in because I know we like to go quite deep, quite quickly. When did you first realise you were highly sensitive, and how did that present itself in your life at that time?
So I always have been accused of being too sensitive. My parents, my family, that it was just a point of conflict with us all the time because they wanted me to man up. Mm-hmm. They wanted me to be a big boy and don't cry. And they wanted me to be like the other boys and be rough and athletic and running and screaming and loud and blowing things up and all of this stuff. And I'm not that person. I'd rather hide in a tree and read a book or go down to the lake and study pollywogs in the water than do any of those things. But I tried to go along to get along. So I did kind of pretend through some of that. And I knew myself that I was very sensitive. And I didn't know that was a thing, like a category. I just thought it was an error in my mental wiring or emotional wiring. I thought there was something wrong with me. And of course, being raised like that made that even more obvious to me. But in my late teens, I left home early. I left home at 16 because I couldn't be there anymore. And I began to realize that I liked being sensitive. I liked feeling the way that I felt. I loved that I cried in movies. I loved that books could get to me. So I decided at that point that I wasn't going to let sensitivity be the burden that it had been previously. And so I started just not caring. I'm sensitive. If you can't handle it, too bad. Well, then in 96, when Elaine Aron published the book on the highly sensitive person, the light went off in my head. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is exactly what life has been up until this point. And it was at that point, I mean, I knew I had a lot of emotional things I needed to work through and mental health issues from growing up in an abusive home. Um, but I decided then and there that I was never going to consider that sensitivity a curse. And I hear so many people, but men especially, say that it's a curse, that they wish they'd never had it. And so I set out to start really figuring out how this could work for me instead of against me. And at the time I was very deep in athletic training. I did Olympic athlete training in Colorado, learned a lot of that discipline, and all of these factors started to seep in. And I started to see how they all could benefit sensitivity. Instead of being a way to shove sensitivity aside, it really became a way to even process more deeply. And so, the inner work and the meditation. I'm not a good meditator. I also have ADHD, so that it just became a process. And as I aged, I started seeking out groups to interact with, because I know what I am. Are there other people out there that, and there must be, because Elaine wrote a whole book about it. So are there other people? Well, then I found this men's group based online, and it's all highly sensitive men, all men who identify as that. And that really started the wheels turning for me. My creativity started shifting gears, and I thought, this is an area where I can be very effective, because I am sensitive. I have lived through this and created these processes for me to thrive. So how can I help other people thrive in the same way or in similar ways? And so that's opened up a lot of doors. My colleague Bill and I are launching a podcast in the new year.
Yay.
called Still Waters. And it's going to be focused on the creative and sensitive man, but it's going to cover all genders. I mean, we're not really going to be just masculine focused, but that is kind of our general purpose for that, because men process things differently than women. Women, and I'm not trying to be sexist about this or anything, but women are born knowing how to emote and knowing how to nurture and knowing how to, I mean, these are innate things that we come into this world with. Men may come into the world with those same things, but it's taught out of them. They're like, no, that's not good. You can't be like that. That's too much what women do. You can't be a woman. And so it's a very interesting dynamic, and I'm thankful for Bill for having started this men's group, and he and I doing this podcast, and it's led to the magazine. I'm working on an anthology of essays and poetry from highly sensitive men. So there's a lot of things coming out of this, and I'm really excited because now that Dr. Aron has shone a light on this, and the world has started looking at things differently. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to be alive in this period, because, yeah, it seems like it's a perfect match.
Yeah. What an amazing story as well, of just how to take something that sounds horrific at such a young age into such a story of strength and gifts and just connection with other people. I think that's such an amazing story. I don't think I've heard one like that before. Just that complete and utter embodiment, but also just acceptance and then going further than acceptance, that kind of I'm very visual, so I have kind of images in my head. And I love the idea of you kind of just almost kind of shining with these rays coming out of you of like, this is how you can embrace this. This is how you can actually learn to love these things about you rather than trying to push them away and trying to push them down.
And that they're not hurtful to you in some way.
Absolutely. And I know going back to when you were younger, you were talking about that you had an early warning system. And I would love to dig into that more because I was thinking about this today and I was just thought, obviously I haven't done any research on this, but I'd be really interested in the connection between hypervigilance and highly sensitive. I think those two things go so well together.
I
And
think
so,
they go hand in hand.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd love to know about kind of your experience with this when you were younger. What was that early warning system? What did that look like?
Okay. So I want to kind of make a disclaimer here that hypervigilance and trauma does not cause hypersensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that's what happens. You get traumatized as a kid and suddenly you're hypersensitive. And that's not true at all. I was, well, I don't know if I was born this way, but I have always been sensitive. I don't know any other way. Even as a 4 and 5 year old, my mother always told the story about how I refused to talk until I was 5 years old, which is really late for a child to start even trying to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've gone through life and kind of reflected back on that, I think it's because I recognized the danger that I was in at that time through my sensitivity. I think my sensitivity was telling me, well, don't act, don't say anything yet. You better wait and see what's going to happen because I could see these adults who were chaotic and mean and all of these things. So I learned to kind of stand back and watch. And hypervigilance, that's how this is born through trauma. But I already had that innate need to do that in me. So I don't think the hypervigilance became a problem. It actually became a resource. And so it would help me see, like if my mother would walk out of her room and there was a certain expression on her face, I would immediately leave the house because my sensitivity is saying, nope, storm warning, better go. and and that's happened throughout life. I mean, it's not just as a child, but it did help me as a child. It helped me stay out of fights. It helped me to, see other adults who might be abusive. It kind of put me in harm's way sometimes, but I had to learn how to manage that.
Mm.
And so that early warning system probably saved my life because I don't know that I would have survived without it. So being able to, and it's not mind reading, it's intuition. It's telling you, look at the signs, look at everything, all these little signs that you didn't group into one thing, but then you did. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what that means. So now I'm going to watch out for that going forward and make sure that I protect myself as needed.
Mm.
And it still works as an early warning system. I rely very heavily on intuition. I do a lot of metaphysical stuff. I'm a certified astrologer, and I use that. It's all energy. It's all just energy and frequency. And so it helps me. That's kind of another type of early warning system. This is the energy that's surrounding you right now. What are you going to do about it? And so it's helped me make decisions. It's helped me, go in directions that have been helpful. The older I get, the better my life has become. And I credit all of these sensitive, intuitive things for helping me get here. Because I didn't think I would live past the age of 25. And I really tried not to be alive by 25. I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. But that was self-medicating. It wasn't suicidal. It was me saying, I don't want this sensitivity. Please get it away from me. If I can dull all that pain, I'll be so much better off. And of course, I wasn't. But eventually, I realized that I was hurting myself more than helping myself. So I got clean and sober. I mean, I went through that process. And in that process, I've been in therapy pretty much for 53 years on and off. And I made it a point to stay in therapy because I needed that constant feedback and map reading. Tell me where I am. Tell me if I'm doing okay. Help me understand me. And it's just, I think it's been so much of a blessing to go through all that.
There's quite a few questions that come up. I'd love to know. I think the first one I'm going to start with is, what was it that helped you to make different choices when you were in that, when you were trying to numb that sensitivity, when you were trying to push it away and you chose kind of drugs and alcohol? What was the thing that helped you to kind of turn away from that and get clean? What was there anything specific, or was it just over time?
I have a moment in my head, a very specific moment. I couldn't tell you what point of time this happened at, but there was a very specific moment where the voice in my head said, "You're killing yourself slowly. If you mean to do that, then just do it. Otherwise, cut it out." And I was like, "Oh, is that true? Am I really suicidal and I'm just taking the long way around?" And I decided that was true. And I said, "Okay, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to continue down that path and continue destroying everything that you built and done?" And I was like, "No, that's not what I want." And once I passed the age of 25, I don't know why I had that number in my head. But I was like, "Oh, I don't have a plan for living past 25. I need a plan." And so that's where it all kind of started moving forward. And yeah, I checked myself into an inpatient program for drugs and alcohol, and I was invested in surviving.
Wow.
And it was that one specific moment where it's like, either kill yourself or get over yourself. One of those two things have to happen.
Yeah. You knew even then that you still needed the support for the drugs and the alcohol, but the therapy as well to keep you kind of on that track.
Well, and it's been such a blessing now because my therapist is highly sensitive herself. And that was huge. That was a big step. I've been with her since 2018. I see her every week. We've become more than patient client. We've become friends. And so through her, I teach a program called Write to Heal. And it's a writing program where kind of a journaling thing where you write your story and you change the outcome and you change the ending and you empower yourself through writing. And it's all seemed to kind of flow together. And I don't have any architecture experience about putting things together like this, but I've learned to see things that are of a similar frequency or similar light and fold that in to the process, because yeah, why wouldn't I? If this is going to help somebody or me, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah. Oh, so many questions come up. So I had to write some of them down as you were talking. So the
That's
first
okay.
one, I want to go back to when you were talking about intuition, because this is something that I absolutely 100% agree on. I have this conversation quite a lot, just generally about, like you were talking about, it's all energy. I was having a conversation with my family at the weekend saying, people believe in things like Wi-Fi and radio waves and things like that, but they don't seem to open their mind to other possibilities. And I think highly sensitive people are such a a lighthouse for that kind of, and I know we both like the idea of lighthouses, but I think there's such a good image for that because we do. I can't remember the research, and I'm going to botch this up. Um, but I know that through some of the research they have done, normal people process a huge amount of kind of information or stimuli very, very quickly. And they're finding that with highly sensitive people, they actually do process more in the same amount of time. So it is true what you're saying. We notice things, we observe things, we feel things that other people can't necessarily feel in the same space of time. And it's really linked to that intuition, and it's really linked to that idea of this is absolutely what I should be doing. But I would love to know what, or is there a difference for you between something that is intuitively a yes and something that is intuitively a no? Because my gut feeling is so many highly sensitives have been encouraged to turn that intuitive side of us off by pushing it away, by numbing it, by not feeling it. I'm really intrigued to hear how you have navigated that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think that I thought of intuition as a friend
Mm.
because it wasn't trying to lead me astray, it was trying to help me. And so as a 20-year-old, still really kind of chaotic and living in the world, and my ADHD is just going crazy, you start that intuition starts seeping in between the noise. And because we are already accustomed to seeing things that many people don't see normally, like seeing those little signals or hearing that voice in your head say, hey, maybe you should do that. I learned to listen to it. And for me, I just credit intuition. I wanted to be psychic. I've always wanted to be psychic. And don't ask me why. And I got jealous of my friends who do psychic work. Okay. And I thought, well, I'm intuitive. Why aren't I psychic? But then I got thinking, I don't really want that level of stuff coming at me because I'm already sensitive. I don't need to be combating these things and pictures and thoughts and ideas that I don't want. I want to get quiet and actually hear intuition. And it all it is it's the same voice that's in your head that talks to you all the time. That's your intuition. But you can train yourself to pay attention when it speaks, because every time I ignored it, something went horribly wrong. And it's that kind of negative reinforcement. You start, oh, I didn't listen to that. And now look what happened. I crashed the car. Well, if I had learned to listen more closely, which is what I've done as an adult, I've taught myself to listen closely and not doubt it. Because when you start doubting yourself, that's when things go sideways. And so if you come to a point in your thinking and feeling where you say, intuition will never lead me astray, and you learn to trust that feeling or the voice or whatever it is, it will serve you very well in life.
Mm.
And I think for me, that's enough. I don't need to be psychic. I can hear my intuition, and that tells me what I need to know.
Mhm.
I don't
I,
need other people's problems.
yes, I love that. I've always admired people who can do that, and I've always said I love it, but it's not for me. Like I know that I wouldn't be able to hold that like they can. Um, so I love that. And when you are feeling into this intuition, and I'm very much aware that sometimes it's a body feeling, sometimes it's kind of a niggle. Do you feel a difference between when your intuition is saying, yes, do this, and no, don't do this?
Yes. And again, it's so subtle sometimes that you have to really pay attention. Um, but let me come up with an example. I'll be writing something, And then while I'm writing with my right hand, because I'm right-handed, my left hand reaches out to grab something over here. And suddenly I've got this thing in my hand, and it's like, oh, this has to do with the writing. So intuition has got me working over here with my left hand while my right hand is writing. And then I'm like, okay, intuition is telling me this story now has to go in this direction because it just kind of snuck in. And I'm fine with that. Like I said, I trust it implicitly, and it never leads me astray. It's only when I disregard it or ignore it. That's the only time. And so it is a body thing. Sometimes it is a mental thing. Sometimes it's an emotional thing. Sometimes
Yeah.
if I notice that I'm getting triggered, like I'm watching television and a commercial comes on and I start crying during the commercial. Okay, what's going on here? That to me is intuition telling me what is it about this that caused that emotional reaction and why do you need to pay attention to it? And it's like, well, that means right now I'm very sensitive to this kind of energy. And so it over time it really works out.
I love the fact that you bring in curiosity there as well. There's a kind of curious way that you were describing that, and I think that's such a powerful thing as well. There's not judgment there. It's curiosity of, oh, I wonder why that is. I think that's such a powerful thing. When you first started tapping in, I know I keep talking about intuition, but I'm just going to wrap
That's
it up with
okay.
when
I
we're
love
wrapping up with
talking
this.
about intuition.
I'm going to wrap it up with this last question. Um, when you are kind of or when you started to lean into it, your intuition, what were the small steps that you took to actually lean into that more, to listen to it more? Did you just sit with it more? Did you get curious about it? Like, what were the things you actually opened up to allow that to talk to you more? That makes sense.
Yep, it does make sense. So when I was a child in that early notification system was kind of active, I didn't understand what that was or how it was working. But as I got older and more mature, I started hearing it more, like it was more present. And to me, that meant that, well, maybe I should be listening to this. And so I did. And again, when I ignored it, it went wrong. When I paid attention to it and did what it was suggesting, I was like, oh, okay. So it's that taking that negative reinforcement, turning it into positive reinforcement. So the more I listened to it, the more I could hear it.
Hmm.
It was like opening a door. You open it this much, and then you open it this much, and pretty soon the door's not even there. You've taken it off the hinges because it's just you want it all to come through. And not because it makes me feel special, not because it makes me feel like I'm better than anybody else, but because it helps me thrive. And that's my goal is I want to thrive. I don't want to be that mess of a person who was drug addicted and drunk. I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be completely present. And intuition has really helped with that.
Yeah, because as you were talking there, there's that idea that you have to be in that moment to listen to that intuition. So it's got kind of a mindfulness element to this as well, isn't it? Where you're very much listening, curious, open in that present moment.
So I lived in Colorado for 40 years. I know hundreds of people there. Crazy, crazy lifestyle. That's where, I was a DJ in the clubs. I was all this stuff. And at in 2018, I realized, I said, I can't even hear myself think anymore. It's just, there's too much noise. And so I packed everything, got the dogs in the car, and I drove to North Dakota. Well, if you are familiar with this area of the country, there's nothing here. It's flat and it's windy, and I didn't know anybody. So I got into this house, and it was probably the best thing that I've ever done because now I can actually really hear intuition talking. And, I isolate a lot. My therapist is like, well, normally I would tell people don't do that because it's unhealthy. But she says, you seem to really thrive in that environment. And it says, because I can hear things, I can hear my thoughts, I can hear intuition when it says something. So why wouldn't I build a conducive environment to that?
Mm-hmm.
That just makes the most sense to me.
Yeah. And I think because we've got such rich inner worlds, it's like we've got a whole like kind of village inside us anyway. So I always think we don't necessarily need that many people around us because it's all going on inside anyway.
Okay, so I'm going to make a confession here. Please don't blackmail me. I've already said I'm an astrologer. So I have this process for myself that has worked really, really well. And I call it the Committee of 12. You just said it was a village. Well, for me, it's the 12 zodiac signs represented by humanoid figures in my head. And whenever I'm having to make a big decision or anything, or think about something, or I have a problem I'm trying to solve, I'll put it to the Committee of 12. And somebody will give me an answer that I need. But it makes me laugh because people are like, well, isn't that like schizophrenia? And I said, well, no, they're not jabbering at me all the time, and they're helping me. Mm. And that's how it is, because they sit quietly and they wait for me to approach them. And it's like you said, it's that village. Mm-hmm. We already have that rich inner life going on.
Yeah.
Even as a writer, I write under 4 different names because they write different material. So it's not compartmentalizing really. To me, it just feels natural to have options. Mm-hmm. So that's how I've constructed my world.
Yeah. And I think that makes sense. I mean, I trained in something called parts therapy, which is, where you ask the different parts of your body what they're feeling and what they want to express. And I think that fits into this really nicely. I also think that is kind of highly sensitives. You are a deep processor. So you can see a lot of different angles. You can see a lot of different things. And sometimes if you don't separate those out, it can feel overwhelming because you'll be like, well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. I can see it from all angles. So I actually think what you're talking about by separating it is going, right, I'm listening to you first, then I'll listen to you, and then I'll make a decision. So I actually think it makes perfect sense. Maybe it's just because I'm a HSP too.
Well, it's a system, and it's a system that works. So why wouldn't you use it? Mm-hmm. If it's not harming you in any way, you don't have to tell everybody that you have 12 people living in your head. that could be a problem.
Yeah.
But my therapist thinks it's great. She said she wishes more people would do that because it's so helpful in processing stuff.
Exactly.
And especially with sensitive people who process so much more on a minute by minute basis. To have help sorting through it is just very important.
Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, taking that sort of something that is quite complicated and simplifying it and making it easier to process.
Yeah. Because you could have all these other little pieces flying around that don't have anything to do with what you're trying to think about. And so that helps just clear the space and say, okay, this is what I'm focusing on right now. So let's do this. Yeah. And it's helpful because, like I said, I have ADHD, so I do kind of get distracted, but this practice has really helped me to focus. Mm-hmm. And so I've turned the phrase ADHD into the number 80 HD, and that means I have 80 high definition channels of creativity going on. And so that's my story.
I love it.
That's what I tell people. It's like, nope. Not ADHD, it's ADHD.
I love that. Really, again, spinning something that could be seen as an obstacle or something that's going to get in your way into something that's actually a gift and a strength.
Yeah, work with me, not against me. Mm-hmm. That's all I ask.
Yeah. You can tell by the way you're talking, you get the idea that you're a writer, that you're an author. So how do you use that now? How do you channel that sensitivity into your writing? You were talking about the fact you write under 4 different people. How does it help you to express? Does it help you to process? Like why writing, I suppose, is the question I'm asking.
Well, writing is the closest connection that a human has to their soul. And we, when we write, we're using our body to do that. And so the act of moving the arm, holding the pen, channeling thoughts into that onto that paper, it's a body experience. So why writing works that way? And it's, I mean, Carl Jung and Freud and all of these top psychologists have always said, write. If you want to know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, write it down. And that's the whole basis behind the program Write to Heal. And that's what we use. It's just that it's that organic way of processing what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're angry about, it just helps to get it out. It's like talk therapy. When you're in talk therapy, you say something, you hear it, and then it comes back through. So you're actually actively therapizing yourself. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now.
We like it. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
So writing's the same way, because you can go back to that writing and say, oh yeah, I remember feeling that and I wonder why. And you can explore it more. For me, it's a form of meditation because I cannot sit still in a room and close my eyes and it's like there's a popcorn popper in my head. The thoughts are just flying everywhere. And so writing for me is that therapy.
Yes.
It really helps me.
I had a conversation with another guest a couple of weeks ago, and she's a painter and she loves to paint. And I said, I really do think that highly sensitives, and maybe just humans generally, but I think highly sensitives embrace it more because I think they need it. I think it's there, but we have to have something that helps to balance us, which helps which helps us to express our sensitivity in some way. Whether that's, I mean, it could be walking, it can be yoga, it could be meditation, it could be writing, it could be painting, it could be, but it's
gardening,
some way.
it could
Absolutely.
It could be painting the house.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for all of that because it's an outward expression of what's going on inside. And so with the highly sensitive, we don't want to bottle that up. We need to have some way to get that pressure out.
Yes.
Not that it's a bad thing, but for me, it developed into writing. I've always been a writer, always been a storyteller. But that's why our new podcast with the Stillwaters, we're focusing on the creative and sensitive male because those two go together. No separation there.
I would love to hear more about that. And I know you've got the magazine as well coming out in 2026. So just talk me through, we've spoken very much about where you've come from and the journey that you've been through and very much your thought process and that intuitive journey that you've been on. What does that mean for you now? How do you help people? What does that show up like now?
So my goal in life has always been to serve humanity. I think that's the driving force in me. How that manifests changes all the time. So I don't like feeling like I'm living in a vacuum and I'm just absorbing and never doing anything with that. It's like having a grandfather who has a favorite grandson. And so the grandfather tells the grandson all the stories and tells them how to think about some things and how to go about life and how to be nice to people. I have dogs and they don't listen that well. So I need to have that outlet. Why have I amassed all of this wisdom and knowledge and everything if I'm just going to hold on to it? That makes no sense. It does me no good to hoard it. So I have to release it and put it out into the world. And in doing so, I've chosen certain mediums to do that with. So that's how it works for me. It's an outlet for me. It's almost like an art outlet, but it's creative outlet, I guess.
Yeah. And when I'm going back to the writing a little bit here, just are there genres that you write in? Are the 4 different ways that you write? Are they all different genres? Sort of just give us an inkling into that.
Yeah. You want to see behind the curtain.
If
where the
you'll
Wizard
let
of
us.
Oz is.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put the names out, but I'll tell you, um, under my name, my specific name, I write very dark, almost horror, but it's more dark psychological stuff. Processing all of that childhood trauma and everything. Really exploring that. Another persona, he writes, and they're all men because they're just like facets of me as a writer. He writes more metaphysical, kind of like, who's the guy that wrote the Notebook?
Yes, yes.
Nichols. That's what he writes, and it's a different type of writing, and it calls on a different way of presenting that material because you're not going into the dark. You're actually writing with more light there. And I've got one persona who does science fiction. He loves the sciencey rockets and monsters and stuff like that. And another one writes mystery and thrillers.
Okay.
Very genre specific, those two. So,
nice.
And it helps me because it's a form of expression. It's like doing, if I was a painter, I could do watercolor or acrylics or oils, and so it's just a different type of expression in each of those.
The magazine next year, what's that going to look like? Is it going to bring in some of this writing? Is it going to be other people in it? Kind of what's happening?
Well, it'll be an exploration. I have a magazine out now called The Art of Soaring, and that's an exploration of creativity and culture. So it's just a kind of a passion project for me. I put it out digitally every quarter. The other magazine, the Hearts of Thunder magazine, is going to be drawing in external writing from. I've got a call for submissions out, and I'll send that to you in an email in case you want to put that out to your listeners.
Be great.
But it's going to be that. It's going to be all about sensitivity and how we process it and how it makes us more creative or how we feel about it. It's just it gives voice. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of the highly sensitive population is having that voice.
I love that. And I think I've just written down here because I think it's important because you're a male who identifies as highly sensitive. If you could give like one message to any sensitive males listening, what would that be?
So I've thought about this in advance because I've kind of figured this would come to this. My teaching, I guess, would be that your sensitivity is not something that you need to overcome or manage or compensate for. It's a very sophisticated form of communication. That's how the universe talks to you. And the universe, is going to give you all of this stuff, not as a test, not as a way to see what you're made of. It's a way to better communicate with everything, because highly sensitive people feel better in nature. Well, look at what we're doing. We're communing with all of this energy, this natural energy and whatnot. So you're not weak, you're not broken, you're not too much. You're exactly right how you are. Figure out how to embody it in a way that helps you.
Yeah, I love that. That's really powerful, and I hope that really lands with the listeners as well, because you're absolutely right. We often think that we have to manage something or overcome something, and actually leaning into it and being open to it and being curious, I think, is so much more powerful. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and that's what I've done. Is I decided I'm leaning into this as much as I can, because I'm not going to let other people tell me that I'm broken. Sorry. Yeah. You don't get to choose that for me.
So how can people find you? Where do you hang out?
I'm hiding.
Yes, me too. Hermit status.
I'm in North Dakota, and yeah. My website, I'm out on the internet pretty widely. My website is just my name, marcasPOdea.com. And you can find out anything from that from pretty much from that website. There's links to everything. Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm not shocked that there are lots of links.
It's that ADHD. It's like, oh, I need 15 websites. But, you need different tools for different things. So Noble Manhattan now, the team that has founded that, we are putting together the International Association of Creative and Performing Artists, which is going to launch in the new year as well. 2026 is going to be big.
Yeah.
And I've created a magazine for that organization, and that's going to serve all the countries on the globe. And it's all about creativity and performances and how we express ourselves as humans. And I'm very excited about that.
And I think that's really important just to focus on there as well, because we've been talking about highly sensitive. We have mentioned creatives a bit, but I think just that crossover, having both of those things, and actually how so many highly sensitives are creative without even realizing it. I know when I was younger, I just thought creative meant you had to paint and draw, but there are so many different ways to be creative. So I love the fact that you've actually brought it back to that, because I think that's an important.
Well, when I was a creativity coach, and that was my main practice, I would have people say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And this would be a mother who's raising 4 kids, running a household, making a menu, balancing the checkbook, making lunches, making sure everybody gets. I mean, if that's not creativity, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So, I think that people do themselves a disservice if they think they're not creative. We are all creative. That's human nature. We are creators, I guess, if you want to say that.
I love that, yes. I love that fact that we've entered there, because I think, like you said, it really fits nicely back into the energy piece there, that we can create so much. And a lot of that, I think, just something I'm taking away from our conversation today is that curiosity, that openness, that asking the questions and leaning into that intuition. And I think that goes hand in hand with that creativity and that kind of skill of creating. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Kate.
I will make sure all the links are in the show notes. Please do go and go and check Marcus's website out with the 15 million trillion links that I'm sure they're on there. And do connect with him, do talk to him. He is a very special man. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Kate.
More than welcome. I've absolutely loved it. And I'll be back next week with another episode. See you soon.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to this week's podcast with me, Kate Carter. I appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed this show, then please leave a review. Every month I will pick a winner for a free 50-minute coaching session with me. Also, if you know someone who could benefit from listening to this podcast, then please share and help me reach more new entrepreneurs who could benefit from learning their own small steps to take.